Before we get into today's broadcast, just a quick disclaimer. This commentary was recorded before the final playoff seedings were set, and OKC was obviously ruled out of that 7th spot. That being said, Golden State could still see them in the conference finals or even next year's playoffs, so it all still applies. And there are even further applications that I'll explain at the end of this video. So I simply felt there was too much good content and insight still in there and still applicable to just go ahead and scrap the whole thing. But do keep that in mind while watching. Alright then, roll the intro.
Back out to Allen. Clay for three.
Is there really some that could make KD even more hated than he is already? More disrespected than this? Now, the weakest superstar in history, the snake, the cupcake, all those labels, all that disrespect. You probably think it can't happen, that he's hit the lowest of the low in regards to reputation. I'm here to offer a fresh perspective. At the time of the making of this video, there's more than a good chance that the Golden State Warriors will face off against the Oklahoma City Thunder in these upcoming playoffs. And at the time of the making of this video, there is more than a good chance that we will not see Steph Curry play a single minute in that first round. Now pause for a short sec. Is there anything worse for KD's rep than losing a playoff series to the Oklahoma City Thunder 2 seasons after losing with the Oklahoma City Thunder to the Golden State Warriors and then jumping ship to the very team that beat him in the first place? I mean, that's a front hand, backhand double slap to KD's legacy. People will remember that forever. You hear it discussed all the time. In 20 years, looking back, people will forget this Golden State move. Why? They'll just look at the accolades, the finals MVPs, the rings, the playoff performances, the win records. I mean, that's been the general argument at its core. Charles Barkley himself hopped ship in 96. People say, oh, it's not the same thing. He was traded. No, he forced a trade. It wasn't even in free agency. And it was to the Houston Rockets squad coming off back-to-back repeat championships. KD went to Golden State after they lost in the finals. I mean, you could argue that Barkley's actions were actually worse here. Remember, he too created a super team of his own with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. Yet decades later, he's up there with TNT talking about KD made the weakest move ever by any superstar in any sport. And people hardly even ever mention it. They just nod their heads in approval of the hypocrisy. The craziest thing is, Barkley never even won a championship in his entire career. And people still forget. The difference is timing and circumstance. KD losing to the team that he just burned just 2 short seasons prior, in his first playoff series without Steph, expected to step up and put the team on his back. Just let that sink in. The amount of pure, unadulterated pressure he'd face is basically insurmountable. It might be the greatest pressure a superstar has yet to face in this league. You date back to the 2011 finals, LeBron's meltdown against Dallas in his first season debuting his new self-made super team. People still bring that up to this day when discussing Bron's legacy, comparing him to MJ and whatnot. And they'll continue to bring that up indefinitely. These things aren't easily forgotten. Now imagine that exact scenario happened, but against Cleveland. Yeah, that's how crucial this playoff series would be to Durant's career. A win means absolutely nothing. Same copy-paste narrative will be employed. KD won because he had the unfair advantage. But a loss would mean everything. It'd alter the way his legacy is looked back on forever. People won't ever forget that. It'd be as blatant as it would if he had it branded on his forehead. And if you want to witness that once-in-a-lifetime experience, be present, watching it live, in person, when this moment goes down in the history books. You can book playoff tickets for the first round today with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that aggregates all the tickets from around the web and puts them into one place to simplify the process for you. No need to scour the internet any longer trying to find the best deal on different websites, different services. It's all in one place. So you want to pick up some tickets to the first round of the playoffs in Golden State? Easy. Just hop on to SeatGeek, use their ranking system from 1 to 100 to find the best bargain. Green, that's a great deal. Red, don't buy those. And the best part is, it'll actually give you the exact perspective from the seat you'd be sitting at. If there's something blocking your view, you'll know it beforehand rather than after you show up to the game. You can also get tickets for essentially any other type of event, any other sport, concerts, festivals, Broadway shows, stand-up comedy, etc., etc. On top of all that, you can use my promo code CLAY and get $20 off your first purchase. Just enter in the code CLAY before finalizing the payment. Alright, shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Link will be in the description, and let's get back to it. Last season, when KD went down, there was a brief passing moment of despair. It lasted maybe a week and a half tops. And from that point on, it was smooth sailing, and a fire had been sparked to come out stronger and carry some momentum into the playoffs. This year, the Golden State Warriors will hobble into the 2018 playoffs. Steph will literally be hobbling, limping on that one good leg, and he still might even look better than the rest of the team. The more fitting term there might be rolling into the postseason. I don't mean they're on a roll, I mean physically rolling themselves in on a wheelchair. The 40-point beatdown last night in Utah, that was nothing but the icing on the cake. Or I guess I should say the nail in the coffin to this egregious final quarter of the season. Golden State has finished horridly. There's no other way to put it. That sense of despair and discouragement has carried on all the way through to the final game of the season. And maybe it's the outcome of not just one, but multiple key injuries that has contributed to this gloomy atmosphere. Maybe it's got something to do with the Houston Rockets and how well they've played all season long, and therefore the lack of real motivation to step up during the last month, 2 months of this regular season due to the fact that the Warriors have been locked out of the 1 seed for quite some time now. But I think the main factor, and the most crucial one at that, is that this team is simply not used to looking at KD as their leader or playing the style of basketball that they need to adjust to be able to play under him rather than under Steph. It's less floor spacing, it's less movement, it's more KD, give him the ball and let him get his own, reminiscent of his days in OKC. And there's not a huge problem in that solely on its own, considering Durant's one of the greatest scorers this league's seen, and he can tally up points in pretty much any way there is to do so. Inside, out, off ball, ISO, pull up threes, catch and shoot threes, post work, name it, he'll be effective. The problem with that system is that it doesn't allow the supporting cast to be as effective as they can be. A lot of players on this team have built their careers up, found or refound success, had career revivals due to playing in that original system. And this all might be contributing to some of the down seasons we've seen from PMAC, from Iguodala somewhat. Might be contributing to new acquisitions unable to find themselves like others had in the past. Guys like Barboza, Spates, and them, they instantly assimilated and found their place on the team. This year, Nick Young, the recently cut Caspi, they haven't at all. And it's sort of two problems that cause each other and play into one another. See, the lack of an impact that those two were able to bring, the lack of bench scoring, specifically earlier in the season, contributed to the inability to let that all-inclusive system work its usual magic. In addition to that, it's just something they're not used to. Last year when they lost KD, they'd already been looking to Steph as their general for most players, for as long as they'd been with the team. Now you look at the OKC matchup, even without Steph, purely talent-wise, Golden State still has the upper hand, but it's not by much, and it all relies on a number of different variables. The most blatant of which is Quinn Cook, essentially the Warriors' only bright spot these last few weeks, and even with everything he's been doing on a consistent game-to-game basis, it still shocks and amazes you. It's still a surprise when you see him repeat that success. Even during a game where he's already dropping 30, he's at 25 already, and you see him hit another deep three, and you're like, damn. You see him sidestep a defender and contort his body midair while finishing a layup, same reaction. You see him using his quickness and his smarts to get open jumpers, using his body to protect the ball while finishing, threading the needle to an open teammate right on time. It all still startles you. Why is it still shocking at this point? Because we know it's not 100% reliable. You never know how he'll perform in the postseason once it hits, with absolutely zero experience as the starter in place of the two-time MVP superstar Steph Curry. All the accolades, you know him, I don't gotta list them. This is his replacement, Quinn Cook. I mean, he has practically no experience in the NBA as a whole. let alone in the playoffs. He's played this season like 4 times the amount of games he's played in his entire career in the preseason. I mean, even during his time with the Dallas Mavericks and the Pelicans combined, he only played a little over a month of real regular season basketball, NBA basketball, and he sure as hell wasn't averaging 30 minutes plus that he's been getting here. The other issue is Klay Thompson in a backcourt without Steph. You hear haters calling it out all the time that Klay and Draymond and basically anybody not named Steph Curry or Kevin Durant on the Golden State roster is simply a product of that supreme talent around them. I wholeheartedly disagree, but what's not debatable is that Klay Thompson on his own in that backcourt without Steph Curry is not the sort of team leader you expect out of a star of his caliber. He's a system player. He performs extremely well in a good team system, within a good team system, as the behind-the-scenes star. Now, please don't get me wrong. Klay is extremely reliable and extremely consistent, but he's also extremely streaky, and you never know. One quarter, he might drop near 40. The next, he could go scoreless and finish out the game completely quiet. He'll always get his own and almost always contribute positively. Even if he's having a bad offensive game, he'll make a huge impact defensively. But all I'm saying is, sometimes he looks like the second greatest shooter ever and one of the best in the game. Other times, he looks like maybe a Chris Middleton, a very strong 3-and-D player, but not the superstar you expect when you look at this Golden State team from afar and think, damn, 4 high-caliber all-stars. This team is damn near unbeatable. You feel me? Now here's the X factor and the real number one concern, and it's Steven Adams. The Warriors do not have a single good and ideal matchup for that beast that is Steven Adams. They will most likely throw Za back in the starting lineup for any matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but it ain't a perfect match. Yes, he's the strongest player on the team. Yes, he's the most physical center they got to really push him out the paint as best as possible. But yes, he's also extremely immobile and severely lacking athleticism, while Steven Adams is the exact opposite. The combination of JaVale and Zaza is nice, in that they each bring a different counterpart to players like Adams. But for one, I don't know how much of JaVale we'll really even see in this series. Kerr seems pretty keen on keeping Zaza as the main and primary center against OKC and keeping McGee out most of the rest of the time. Second, even if JaVale can match him and overcome him athletically, he is still more than susceptible to being bullied inside and being tricked into leaping at everything on the defensive end. We'll see how much he can keep his cool in that regard, if he can fight for positioning on the boards next to guys like Draymond and D. West, and not allow Adams to get the best of him mentally, because we all know he will physically. It'd help tremendously, and he has improved in all these areas a substantial amount this season, so I have faith. That is, if he can even get the minutes and the chance to prove that worth. I assume we'll only really see extended minutes from him in an OKC series during games where the Warriors are really struggling and Kerr wants to send a message first and foremost, while simultaneously diversifying their game out there. Now, in terms of the regular season series, we've seen OKC blow out Golden State by 20, 30 points twice now, and both times with a healthy Stephen Curry. That's a huge problem on the Warriors front. Even the final matchup of the season, the Warriors took the game in the end, but it was extremely hard fought and extremely close. And I think that game primarily would be telling to a playoff series between these two teams, considering the atmosphere with how close we were to the postseason. And to be completely honest, I'm more inclined to assume OKC as the Warriors' biggest threat this postseason over Houston, solely based on how well the Thunder match up to Golden State. I'm not saying OKC is better than the Rockets. That would be foolish to say. I'm saying that they match up better with Golden State than Houston does. Houston is still a big threat and a huge obstacle, don't get me wrong, but if I'm Golden State, I'd rather see OKC take that 5th seed, which I believe is still possible at this point, and have a much lower chance of meeting them in the Western Conference Finals, rather than, say, taking the 6th seed and meeting them in the second round maybe. The most crucial aspect of this OKC threat is that even if Golden State were to take that series, it could still prove to be competitive enough to tire them out along the way, perhaps lead into a depleted, exhausted group heading into a Houston series, and or heading into the finals themselves. It ain't just the Steven Adams dynamic, it's that fearsome perimeter defense, even with that Corey Brewer injury, which they say he'll be back for game 1, but that shit looked bad, I mean really bad. And that'd be a huge factor in these playoffs. But even still, the Rockets ain't even comparable in that regard in terms of perimeter defense. There's a reason this OKC group has the best record in the league against the top tier teams. Like I said, they split the series with Golden State. They're 2-0 against Toronto, 2-1 against Houston, a combined 6-3, good for the best record in the league. I mean, OKC truly is the dark horse of these 2018 playoffs. They're Warrior killers, they're Raptor killers, Houston killers. The one team they struggled against was Boston, who are no longer a factor, obviously, without Kyrie. Alright, this is all just a little added note to keep things relevant and up to date. Y'all heard that disclaimer at the start of the video. And I think Golden State is extremely fortunate the way things have played out. San Antonio minus Kawhi is probably the very best case scenario they could have hoped for. Even Denver, who was eliminated at the last second, would have been a tougher outcome in my opinion. Now, if Kawhi somehow makes an unexpected return, that changed the whole story. But right now, they can rest easy while they allow Steph to have a complete recovery. But if OKC had finished with the 7th seed rather than the 4th, they might have been in better shape than they are now. As crazy as that sounds, they'd have a great chance at taking out Golden State at once, canceling out that factor, and they wouldn't have to face Houston until the conference finals. The way things stand now, they'll most likely see Houston in the second round, and even if they get past them, it'll only be to face a Golden State group in the third with a fully rested Stephen Curry. Alright, one last additional tidbit before we cap this off. Make no mistake, OKC or not, the pressure is full force on KD to step up this first round without Steph Curry, especially considering the way the Warriors have performed under him with Steph out thus far. It won't be nearly as detrimental as it would if he lost to OKC, of course, but it'd still be a huge slap to his legacy, so watch out for that, and watch for an even hungrier KD to come out now, even with one championship under his belt already. Alright, that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit that like if you did, and as always, leave any thoughts, feelings, perspectives in the comment section down below. This has been another broadcast from the basketball poet, Clay Allen. Can I even say that, or is it too cocky? I mean, I think I very much earned the right to call myself that at this point. I'll leave that up to you. Let me know. Am I truly the basketball poet, or do I need some more accolades under my belt before I get that title? Alright, be sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications for more basketball content where journalism meets storytelling. And I'm signing off. Peace.